Hi, I'm Rob Bernstein, and welcome to Everything Neurodiversity.
And I'm Marsha. This is something we've been giving a lot of thought to. So this is probably going to be a 2-video series. We just figure we don't want to stretch everybody's attention span too long. But emotional regulation is so important. And I think that people get told a lot of things that maybe aren't that helpful. What do you think, Rob?
I think the reason why people say things that aren't helpful is because they really don't know what to do about it. You know, if someone is melting down and can't control themselves, like, all right, how do I help this person who's dysregulated?
Right.
It's a tough question.
Right. But, I think we want to start at the very beginning, though, and talk about kind of the root of this whole thing. And that comes from being aware of the fact that you're becoming emotionally dysregulated. Because I think from the point of view of external viewers, sometimes they always describe a meltdown or a shutdown or something is coming out of the blue. And I often talk to people who feel that, their burnout is kind of a surprise that, they got to the point of burnout.
Yeah, and it's a surprise because a lot of people on the spectrum have a problem with what's called interoception, that they're not aware of a lot of their emotions. They're not aware that if they're hungry. So This is just part of the whole picture.
Yeah, it's called alexithymia. It's not the same as being on the spectrum, but many people on the spectrum have this where they're not aware of the signals from their body, so they might not be aware of being thirsty, they might not be aware of being hungry, and also, more specifically, not being aware either of your feelings or being able to describe your feelings. So you might know that something doesn't feel right or it feels not good, but you don't quite know what or why. And it might take hours or even days to figure it out.
Yeah, so that's kind of the first part, as you say, that now we're not talking about self-regulation per se, but being in touch with your feelings and recognizing them or expressing them or learning to know what you're feeling.
Right, it's kind of step one, which is knowing when it is that you need to start thinking about regulating yourself, because one of the things we're going to get to is it's really hard to do once you're totally dysregulated. So we've both been watching TV, and there's a program called Astrid about an autistic young woman who is a criminal investigator. We recommend the program, but one of the things that I think is really helpful and important is often people will say, well, be self-aware or, be aware of what's going on, but that's really theoretical. It's intangible. And what somebody else on the spectrum did for Astrid is he gave her 10 beans in her hand, and she uses the beans so that as she's in situations that are stressful, that it might be too noisy, it might be too much demand, it might be that she's kind of overwhelmed, she takes the bean off, or even 2 beans, depending on how stressful it is. And if she does something that's really feels good and refuels her, she puts the bean back. But by taking the beans out, it's a very visual reminder to her, awareness for her, of the fact that she's kind of getting stretched. She's getting stretched maybe more thin than she might be able to handle. Do you do that with kids?
I didn't use the bean. I just found out about it by watching Astrid the other day. But it's this awareness, and then the next step is, what do you do, or what can you do about it yourself? What could the kid do about it?
I have something I did with kids, which is I would have a drawing of, I called it the thermometer, okay? But just like in cartoons, you might see somebody, get red and get more red and get more red. That way you can actually kind of color it in, or for a kid, see it and recognize when things are building up. Maybe you get home from school and it was a particularly bad day, and then your little brother, starts teasing you or takes something, and then, and the kind of build up. And so, the whole idea of becoming self-aware is that you become part of emotional regulation is doing it, at the right time. And often at the time when you're feeling totally dysregulated, it's the hardest time to actually use it.
And we do this to each other all the time. We tell somebody, you look upset, you look tired. We do that because the other person may not actually be aware that they are, tired or upset. Or,
Right.
we do this all the time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, hey, you're off.
That never happens.
But and sometimes other people give people that feedback, and it has to be somebody trusted. It has to be somebody with whom it's safe and who you don't hear as critical, but helpful. I remember I had one kid who had a coach in gym, and this coach used the, green light, yellow light, red light idea, which is if everything's cool, it's green, but if he starts to get upset, it's yellow. And he used to say, hey, Brian, you're looking a little yellow. Are you okay? And if Brian sort of stopped and thought about it, and he realized that he was maybe not so okay, he might do something, take a break.
I just saw the time. I think we should stop here. And the next session, we'll talk about what kids could do about it.
And adults. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.